What is going on, guys? Satsuki the Savage here, and today I'm going to be covering unOrdinary episodes 58 through 85. There is a lot to cover with these stretch of episodes, and there's some parts where I plain just don't want to talk about it. If you guys see my Sera video, that stream I did with my front camera, you know how I feel already, but we're going to talk about some things, but let's get right into it. The very first topic I want to cover is the collective fear of John. John is a high tier, but he's an unordinary high tier. Unlike his contemporaries, John has little respect for order and maybe even less for authority. There was dialogue between John and Arlo that suggested that John may have a specific reason as to why he's averse to authority, but that reason was not explicitly stated. Going back to my main point though, the reason why people fear John, even though there are the Arlos and Seras of the world, is because he is a wild card. The Royals represent playing cards. Blyke is the jack, Remy is the queen, Arlo is the king, Sera is the ace, and John is the joker. And there are a couple of reasons why I think this. In the poker game, a joker was revealed which was out of place in the deck, much like how John is out of place in the world. You have John's powers, which is wild card-esque, and there's a panel where John is literally called a wild card by Eason. Now, a question may be asked, why would John being represented as a joker make people afraid? Quoting the late great Heath Ledger in his role of the iconic but also ironic Joker, he says,
"Nobody panics when things go according to plan."
And also,
upset the established order and everything becomes chaos.
These quotes describe John. John upsets the balance. He is unpredictable and hard to maintain. And one fear we have as people in the real world is the unknown. This collective fear has affected the likes of Elaine, Eason, and even Arlo, giving us a glimpse of the havoc that John and power would cause. If these batch of episodes have shown me anything, it's that John is the biggest asshole of them all and damn near bipolar. John can switch moves at the blink of an eye, going from good guy John to school shooter John in an instant, and not only that, I dare say that he's worse than Arlo. John was slapping around Elaine like a cheap prostitute and lashing out at Arlo, two people who were helping him and Sera at the time, and he allowed someone to be bullied in episode 77. We can see John slowly reverting back to the John of New Bolston, and given that, he cannot be trusted as King of Wellston, but with the trajectory of the story, I believe he will be crowned regardless. I have more to say about John, but I'll say that for when I talk about character dynamics and other miscellaneous topics. Like son, not at all like father, we have William, who was a nice addition to the cast. William was a pretty cool character who, even before his formal introduction, already had a major presence in the series. William H. Doe is the author of the book unOrdinary, which shook authorities so much that they banned it, fearing that people would be influenced, shaping guys like Ray. Besides that, William had this nice guy aura that seemed authentic, in contrast to John, who only pretends to be a decent dude. William is also a good father. He flew all the way to John's apartment just to check up on him, giving him some much needed stability and guidance. William also clicked with Sera pretty easily after just a day, and considering how cold and unapproachable Sera can be at times, that's impressive. Also, William might be the first legit cripple we've seen in the series thus far, and all things considered, he seems to be doing well for himself. I don't think William will have importance past him being the author of unOrdinary and his relationship with John, but nonetheless, it was great to see the father of John as well as the father of aspiring vigilantes. Now, for the worst part of the video, I have to talk about the rise and the fall of my queen, Serafina. I should have known better. I should have seen it coming. Sera was on top of the game. She punked Arlo in the turf wars, flexed on her mama, was bonded with William, and then these filthy vermin intervened and fucked up everything. In Sera's absence, the game changes and the balance is altered. So I get why Uru-chan did it, but it still hurt. When Sera got jumped and stabbed, I felt the knife in my side. I was yelling, "Uru-chan, take me instead!" Of course, to no avail. Regardless, I love that Sera and Disarray still got the job done. Even with their powers all screwed up, Sera was dropping bodies. My favorite scene had to be when she removed the knife from her side and cut down 2 people. It was badass and it reminded me of why I love Sera so much. Sera, after that incident, lost her powers, and I don't think they're coming back anytime soon. Darren, the school doctor, says he expects her powers to return in a couple of days, but given Sera's broken ability, I think this was the opportunity to effectively bench her so that others may shine. While Sera is out of commission, John is the strongest in Wellston and has no choice but to defend himself. And then you have Arlo, who will be under more pressure to maintain the crumbling hierarchy. As for what Sera's loss of powers will mean for herself, I can see great character growth on the horizon, but at a cost. After Sera's initial shock of losing her powers, Sera was actually nonchalant about it, maybe because she thinks her powers will return, but still, this is a clear shift for her character. I think the past Sera would have been devastated at the prospect of being a cripple, but we see the current Sera brushing it off as if it's business as usual. With Sera being a cripple now, she might understand the perspective of somebody like John better, but even worse, Sera may understand William better. Before, Sera believed that the concept of the unOrdinary book to be absurd, and that was her saving grace in her interrogation, but now things are different. Sera has been changing due to John's influence and reading the unOrdinary book, getting insight from the author himself. The prime example of this change was when Sera helped some random girl being bullied, which is unbecoming of a high tier in most eyes. The authorities, Sander and Keon, plan to follow up with Sera after her suspension, and I think this time, Sera won't be able to cleverly evade real punishment like before. And with Sera being a cripple now, she has a huge target on her back, as I'm sure there are plenty of people that will want to beat her ass while they can. This also gives relevance to the poker game because now Sera has to bluff her opponents out. Next, I'm going to cover Ember as well as Remy. Now, to be very clear, there has still not been confirmation that the group that attacked Sera, Elaine, Arlo, and John are Ember, but I'll continue to call them that for clarity's sake. As I said in my previous video, Ember most likely stole data and equipment from NXGen. It would explain why a group of randos were able to dampen abilities. From the Ember assaults, it seems as if they have a group of low tiers, evident by a severely nerfed Sera being able to destroy them. The fact still remains though, a group of weak asses almost successfully captured / killed Sera. Whatever tools and equipment this group has, it changes the ties drastically and temporarily puts high tiers on level playing field with low tiers. In addition to this ace, another advantage of Ember is the fact that they have low tiers in their ranks. Since they have a bunch of your everyday people in their group, they can maintain their anomaly and add on to their numbers quite easily. Now, with these events happening, there are many questions that need to be addressed about Ember. Why attack high tiers? Why did they initially try to capture but not kill Sera? Why are their targets linked to the unOrdinary book? What exactly is their motivation? These are questions that not only I'm seeking, but Remy as well. After the mall incident, Remy has been fully invested in Ember. Remy has asked Ethan to do more investigations on their attack patterns, and she has been posting flyers all over school to warn students about Ember. Remy is probably the only student that realizes the threat that Ember poses, being personally affected by their attack, and she might be the only one trying to combat them. Everyone seems to think that Remy is overreacting, and when it comes to repercussions from authority, Ember has been untouched, maybe by design. You think that after killing numerous high tiers, some clues about Ember would be found, but there's been nothing. I think as Remy keeps investigating and warning others, people like Arlo who have been attacked by some odd group may realize that there is some connection and support Remy later on. Now allow me to shift this to Remy and her character, because she climbed up to being one of my favorites in these stretch of episodes. Remy is a rare person in unOrdinary. You don't get many high tiers who aren't complete assholes. Remy is just sweet. We saw that a little when she tried to help John, but got even more in these episodes. In her fight with Cecil, Remy beat her ass and offered to help her up. And as condescending as that sounds, Remy is genuine with her compassion. Remy has seemed to adopt the same philosophy as her late brother Ray, who discarded the hierarchy in favor of a system where the strong don't trample over the weak. Unfortunately though, Remy is in the minority of people with this sympathetic view. In fact, people like Cecil see that type of thinking as dangerous since it creates confusion among people. I do think Remy is a tad bit naive and idealistic, but she's not stupid by any means. She even questions the results of Ray's actions, acknowledging that being too much like Ray could be fatal. I hope Remy continues being a sweetheart. I like the balance she brings in the pool of not so nice characters. Is very refreshing. On the opposite side of the spectrum, we have the newly introduced Cecil, who is the bitter to Remy's sweetness. Cecil in a couple of ways is similar to Arlo. She's powerful, she's an asshole, and she respects the hierarchy, but unlike Arlo, she doesn't have any respect for Ray. Cecil chastised and disrespected both Remy and Ray due to their gentleness, which she takes as a weakness. Ironically though, Cecil was dethroned as queen by the quote-unquote weak Remy, so that may add on to why Cecil is especially rude towards Remy and her family. It was also said by Sara that Cecil was replaced as a royal by Blake due to her untrustworthy personality, so she is someone we had to keep our eyes on. Concerning Cecil's role in the story, she holds a lot of power from her position, not just as a high tier, but also being a facilitator of news. Big news, Cecil has the means to spread information and sway the opinions of people in Wellston, which Arlo is already taking advantage of. With Cecil knowing about John's power and Arlo's defeat, she has the potential to expose Arlo, dethrone him, and elevate John to king, which would shake up the entire series. I'm liking this new addition to the cast so far. I love Cecil's bluntness, and now that we have another high tier, I want to see her fight. Cecil's desire to maintain the integrity of the news was also something I can commend. With this section, I'll go over key dynamics, starting with the power duo, John and Sara. On a mutual level, I think John and Sara both need each other, but for different reasons. The more Sara is around John, the more she changes for the better, evident by the contrast of her past self to her current self. As for John, the more he's around Sara, the longer he can maintain a facade of good guy John, as nobody will fuck with John when Sara is in the cut. Obviously, these two care for one another, but as I said in my previous review, I have the eerie feeling that their relationship will take a hit once Sara finds out about John's powers. Sara has been getting clues here and there, but not enough to connect. There was a time John sensed the invisible person, John's breakdown after Sara's suspension, William asking who's stronger, her or John, and there was Arlo uncharacteristically protecting Sara. Right now, it's like connect the dots. The dots are the clues and are scattered, but once Sara gets the real key, she'll be able to link everything together to find the truth. On the flip side, you have John, and even though he has love for Sara, these episodes made me question how deep that love is. John hiding his powers isn't new, but given Sara's predicament, him continuing to lie still is troubling. Sara is vulnerable now as a cripple, but instead of John protecting her, he rather passed that responsibility to Arlo of all people. Of course, John has legitimate reasons as to why he doesn't reveal his power, but there still exists a lack of trust in Sara. And if you really want to keep it 100, John's still not showing his hand, means his illusion of being a cripple supersedes the well-being of Sera. This doesn't mean that John is indifferent towards Sera's safety, but it does mean that his lie is top priority. Even besides that, when Ember tried to kidnap Sera and John was able to overpower the guy who took Sera, instead of securing her, John decided to stab the shit out of the guy. That incident showed me that John's emotions can greatly cloud his judgment, even in moments where his best friend is in danger. Currently, since Sera is powerless and I doubt that will change anytime soon, John is most likely going to revert back to his old self since there's no one he can trust to protect him. Now, as for Arlo and John, this is a relationship that can be described as Ethan said, a battle between two kings. These two only share animosity. John hates Arlo for his betrayal, and Arlo hates John because of his betrayal, towards the hierarchy that is. With John forsaking his true place as king, the hierarchy is in shambles, but ironically, Arlo is to blame as well. If Arlo cared so much about people being in their right place, he should be pushing for John to be the king, but Arlo's resolve has been shaken due to fear. He may not admit it to himself, but Arlo is afraid of John. Even Elaine called him out on his passive behavior when John is involved. And then there's the problem of Arlo's position being threatened. I'm sure when Arlo was thinking about the Order of Wellston, he never imagined there would be another male stronger than him, and now his stance on hierarchy is truly being tested. The last angle with this is what Arlo represents to the school. Everyone sees Arlo as the shield of Wellston because of his king status and because of his power, so there is a need to protect his reputation, otherwise panic may ensue. Right now this relationship is one-sided. John is the one changing Arlo and not vice versa, but that's as it stands now. We've already seen Arlo be able to bring out school shooter John Doe, with enough pressure that is. Briefly talking about the pair of Blake and John, this is one where I can see the relationship actually going good. Right now, Blake doesn't like John and John doesn't like or trust Blake, but since Blake seems to be a decent dude, they can potentially get along. Blake got off the wrong foot with John because of a couple of bad experiences, but I believe they can both patch up their issues quite easily. As long as John isn't in his black text mood, he is capable of cool conversation, and Blake, from panel to panel, from testimony from Sera, is a guy that can be reasoned with. I don't know what will become of this relationship now that these two are roommates, but it could be a positive one under the right circumstances. The last two I want to cover is the king and the queen, at least in the public eye, Arlo and Remy. Leave it to Remy to being one of the few people that can actually have a good relationship with Arlo. These two surprisingly seem like real friends. Sometimes Arlo calls Remy Pinky, and considering Arlo was taken aback by John calling Serafina Sera, I think his choice to give Remy a nickname shows his affection towards her. Arlo is a person that Remy is comfortable confiding in, and vice versa. There's also the link between these two and Ray, which could lead to some major changes for Arlo. Remy hasn't told Arlo the exact details of Ray's murder, and since we know Arlo respects Ray, this could lead to him supporting Remy and trying to oppose Ember. I like the dynamic between these two because they are completely different, but so far, they have complemented each other fairly well. Now for the final segment of this video, the miscellaneous section, I'll be talking about some talking points I couldn't fit in a specific topic. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is John and other teachers knowing about his powers, because that surprised me a little. It doesn't surprise me necessarily that they know that he has powers. It surprises me that they know and allow him to act as a cripple, because Wellston is a prestige school. So John got there because of his powers. He didn't get there because of his immaculate grades or anything like that. They let him in because he's a strong motherfucker, and they're allowing him to not use his powers. That's kind of weird to me. All right, there's not much to say about that. It's just strange. And the other thing I want to talk about is John and his powers. We got a little more from that because we're not going to get anything stated in explicit detail when it comes to the series, when it comes to powers. So with John's powers, he not only can copy abilities, but it seems like he can enhance upon them, because we've seen when he was trying to heal Sera when he copied Elaine's abilities. I'm pretty sure that's what he did. He was able to find the needle in her neck, which Elaine couldn't even do. That surprised her. So it seems like when John takes an ability, he can improve upon it. So John is looking broken. He is looking broken. And I also want to talk about Layla. All right, Layla. This is another theory, and it seems like all my theories, it's the same shit. I'm gonna think that you're connected to Ember. All right, so yeah, I think Layla is connected to Ember, and there are a couple of reasons why. The first being that Layla is a high tier and has time manipulation, so I believe that Ember stole equipment from NX Gen. So she would be the perfect person to steal equipment, given that she's a high tier and has time manipulation. Like, that's the perfect person to do something like that. And also, Layla's dad, who we have not seen, is a partner with NX Gen. So she has some loose connection to that company. And the last thing is, Layla canceled her date with Darren around the same time that John, Arlo, Elaine, and Sera got attacked by the mysterious group, which I'm calling Ember. So the timing seems very weird to me. And there's also the fact that it seemed like they were trying to capture Sera rather than kill them. The MO of Ember has been to kill vigilantes, and Sera isn't a vigilante yet, or I don't know if she will be, but they tried to capture her. They tried to get her in the van on some child molester shit. So it's just weird that they tried to capture her first rather than kill her. So I don't know what Ember's goal is yet, so that may tie into it, but if Layla is behind some of this, it would make sense why she would say, yo, try to capture Sera, don't try to kill her. But if you have to, hey, do what you got to do. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. And the last thing I want to talk about is a complaint I had. And I usually don't have complaints with the series, but I had to talk about this one. My complaint is when the girl attacked Sera. Her name was Bera, or what the hell? I wrote it down somewhere. What the hell was it? It was some ugly ass name. Brea, spelled B-R-E-A, Brea. She attacked Sera from behind. All right. This is how it went down. Sera helped this kid who was getting bullied. Okay, fine. She's on her nice shit now. She's being a nice person, being a decent person. So the person who bullied this kid got mad at Sera because she was getting laughed at by other people, because basically Sera pulled her card. And of course, this is when Sera didn't have power, so she was pump faking the whole time and bluffing. So Uru-chan decided to have this random character attack Sera, and I know why she did it. She did it so that the veil of Sera being a strong person would come down. It would crumble a little bit. There's a chink in her armor now. Now people are going to be like, whoa, does she have her powers? I mean, not everybody thinks that because they didn't really see what went down or they weren't paying attention. But people like Cecil, for example, when she got that news report from that one random chick, she drew a portrait of what happened of, Sera being scared of the blast. She was shielding herself rather than using her powers. It was a convoluted way for Sera to show her weakness already, because mind you, who in the fuck would ever try to attack Sera? I don't give a fuck how embarrassed you are. I don't give a fuck if you think you got the element of surprise. Nobody would attack Sera under any circumstances. It was just a way for this plot point to happen. I didn't like that. It felt forced. It felt like Uru-chan was just throwing that in there. It didn't feel natural or organic, all right? That was something I had to complain about because that really did bother me. But other than that, that's all I had to talk about, all right? The next batch of chapters is 86 through 93. So 8 chapters, that should be an easy read, and that should be a much easier video because I'm not going to lie, this shit killed me. This shit is killing, y'all killing me with this shit, man. That's it, all right? I'm enjoying unOrdinary. I'm starting to see a story, which is good. I'm loving the characters. Cecil? I love them asshole characters. So Cecil, I'm fucking with her. Alright? But that's all I gotta say. Like the video, y'all. Comment, subscribe. Satsuki the Savage, out. Am I dying to live?